Now, non-white applicants, I was just talking about this, at the BBC's flagship journalism scheme, almost 2.5 times more likely to get in than their white counterparts. So this is how the figures break down. Since 2022, an average of 22.5% of applicants were classed as coming from black, Asian and minority ethnic backgrounds. However, over the same 2-year period, those individuals made up 41% of participants on the scheme. In contrast, whites made up an average of 77.5% of applicants, but only 59% of participants on the scheme. That means that non-white applicants were 2.4 times more likely to be given a place on the highly coveted scheme than their white counterparts. Let's speak to host of Beeb Watch, the podcast, former BBC exec himself, an all-round good egg. Roger Bolton is with us. Hi, Roger.
Hello.
Can you hear us, Roger? Loud and clear. We've got you now.
I can hear.
Hey, listen.
I can hear.
Glad to have you with us. So what do you think is going on over there at BBC HQ? Is it just out-and-out racism, or has somebody made a mistake?
Probably neither. Take a long look back. When I joined the BBC several thousand years ago, and on a graduate trainee scheme, the only people who got the jobs who had been to public school, Oxbridge, and were white, and they were male. Then I was very lucky. I went to Liverpool University, didn't go to a private school and so on, but I was lucky to get in because people had noticed something was happening up north. There were very few women around, so the BBC later on decided, oh, crikey, we can't do this. We better make sure that there are more women who get appointed. When I was an editor, 40 years ago, started off doing that, there was only about one black person on my programme. So I think what you've got to make sure is that the BBC is broadly representative of the makeup of the country. And a temporary, if it is temporary, move in this way to make sure there are more people from different ethnic backgrounds is not a bad thing. The other thing I think we ought to remember is this, a sad truth is there's a genuine problem going on with the education of white working class kids in this country and also their aspirations. We keep hearing this from teachers and others. And what tends to happen with immigrants when they come in, they'll do any job to survive. They want their children to succeed, go to university, they push them. We've got a genuine problem, I think, in this country with white working class kids in particular, about not being pushed enough by their parents or ambitious enough.
Yeah,
we need to look at that.
I would agree with that. I think to me, Roger, one of the issues around diversity or the lack of diversity in some areas has been, it hasn't always been race. I mean, obviously, you correctly pointed out, I think when White City was built all those years ago, they said, look, we could have we've got an estate just around the corner here, huge working class estate, and people can come from that estate, a lot of non-white kids, and get jobs at the BBC. Other than cleaners and working in the canteen, never really happened, because the issue was actually more about class than race, I think, and you alluded to it.
It's absolutely, and it still is, it still is in many ways. Ofcom issued a report that's the regulator, within the last year, I think, saying that there aren't enough people from working class backgrounds, regardless of colour, in the BBC. I think that is an issue.
Yeah.
So I think you've got to monitor these things. I don't think it necessarily means that what's happening at the moment is wrong. And after all, you want the best people. I mean, you take Michelle Hussein, who did brilliantly, I thought, to the night. With the 7 representatives of the parties, nightmare job. She did very well.
She'd say that is a nightmare job.
Yeah, nightmare. I mean, I wouldn't organise it like that, but she did brilliantly anyway. But the point about it is you don't want to stop the best coming through. You have to give a broad view on the balance of numbers. Make sure that there isn't it's representative. But I tell you what, there is another problem, which is this: in central, it's the difference between London, where people are very used to lots of different races and so on, and say where I come from in Carlisle in Cumberland, where 99% of the people I think are white. If people from, say, Carlisle see a picture of society which is not what they experience, there are issues. So it's a complex thing to manage.
It is complex, and you're right to point that out, because of course the greatest percentage of, for example, black people live in London. I mean, that's just so. Outside of London, you might have areas where there are no black people, fewer white people, and more brown people, for example. You're right. It's more of a complex picture. My worry, Roger, with this, if we were discussing this 10 years ago, I think I would concur with every word. But here we are now. I don't think, look, anecdotally, looking at the BBC, people I know work at the BBC, when I go to the BBC, I'm aware it looks very diverse on the eye, as it were. I know that's not the full answer, but it counts for something. But this is 2024. They must know what they're doing. And if they're pulling up a stat today that says it's still 2.5 times more likely you're going to get into a journalism course if you're not white, then something has gone wrong, because we have in media, visually on screen, an over-representation of non-white people now.
Well, I think that's right. But I'm not sure, by the way, you should look at all the BBC's training journalist schemes. I'm not sure that you are in this instance. But Ofcom did a report, the regulator did a report, I think about 18 months ago, which they did say that actually there was a slight over-representation of minority, people from minority background in front of the camera. But when they looked at the people who were actually taking the editorial decisions in senior editorial positions, actually it was still predominantly white. And by the way, we mustn't ignore the fact that women still get a pretty raw deal overall. I mean, let's stop women of whatever colour. This is still a male-dominated...
Do you think it is? I mean, it's like, it reminds me... Do you remember that Two Ronnies sketch a few years ago, Roger? The Worm That Turned, I think it was, when the world was run by women and the Two Ronnies were these sort of subservient men that had to exist. I think Diana Dawes was the major in charge of it all. And it was all a bit mad, and it was quite funny and amusing. But sometimes I turn on the TV and I can't see a man anywhere. It's like we've been erased from the story.
Well, I don't know, for example, I watch your channel quite a lot, but I bet you haven't got a majority of women presenters on it.
I'm the only man on here. Mike Graham's not really a man. He changed.
Yeah, okay. But I think it's not a problem now, but it certainly needs to be watched, because it's fatal if the broadcasting industry on the whole, it is not representative of the makeup of the country. You've got a real issue, and people will feel left out. But the thing about immigrants is that they really want their children to get on, and they back them. And I think there's a real challenge to be honest, for white working class parents to have real ambitions for their children and make sure they come to school being able to read, or at least, in some cases, we're seeing children coming to school now in nappies. Now, come on. I think that we've really got to do better here. And people say, oh, it's the nanny state, No, all of us have got responsibility to our children to make sure they have the best opportunities.
All right, Roger, on that point, thank you very much indeed. Always lovely to chat. Roger Bolton, host of Beeb Watch, former BBC executive.